I want to thank the folks at LeaseWeb for having me here today. I'm really relieved because I heard a rumor I was going to have to do this whole thing in Dutch. Maybe next time. So Etsy is 10 years old this year. I'm going to do my best to condense that history into 30 minutes here. Real quick about me, I am an operations engineer at Etsy. I've been working remotely for Etsy for about the last 3 years. Prior to Etsy, I managed people. I had been an engineer. I transitioned into management, and you learn a new appreciation for engineering, just as you do for management. And one of the things I learned that was important when I came to Etsy is that everybody contributes to the development and maintenance of culture at an organization. And in that vein, it's important to understand that anybody can be a leader. You don't have to be a manager. You don't have to be a team lead for a project. Everybody has the capacity to lead in some way, shape, or form. And one of those ways is to make sure that your company culture stays the way it is or is constantly improving. If you're not familiar with Etsy, we're the largest online marketplace for handmade and vintage goods. And our goal is to reimagine commerce in ways that make a more fulfilling and lasting world. So we are linking buyers and sellers around the world. People that are running their small businesses through Etsy's platform are linking with people halfway around the world who are looking for really unique, handmade, one-of-a-kind, personalized items. And I think that's fantastic because, this cat right here, maybe he's a great knitter, and if I wanted Dutch Afghan, I'll find him, right? So, as the MC mentioned, this is not a very technical talk, so why are we here? Every conference that I go to, invariably there's at least one conversation about culture. People are trying to find a way, whether they're a startup or they're a well-established organization, they're trying to find ways to keep their culture good, to make it good, just to generally make some improvements. And usually they describe it in terms of a sort of tension, maybe between management and engineers, or differing ideas about which way the organization should go. And the reason culture is so important to everybody is because it's not just about the technologies we use. It's not just about the products we deliver. We spend so much time at work, so much time in the office. If you're commuting, right? I love the fact, by the way, that there's so many bikes in Amsterdam. Everyone takes the train, they drop their bike off, or vice versa, forget what. I've never seen so many bikes. So if you're commuting all the time, and you're having to deal with racking your bike every day and getting on the train, when you go to the office, you want to know that the time you're spending in the office, it matters. And we judge that by the caliber of people we work with and the quality of the culture within those organizations. I'm going to ask you to keep one thing in mind, though, when I tell you this story. It is not prescriptive. You cannot take what we have done over the last 10 years back to work tomorrow and make it happen for you. Okay, this is our story. You might be able to glean a few things that are useful to you, and I hope you do, but you can't just pick it up and do the same thing. We're going to be Etsy tomorrow, okay? I just want to set a realistic goal for you. Peter Drucker has written a lot about culture in organizations, and at one point he was dissecting what it meant to change culture within an organization, because there was a lot of conversation around changing behaviors. You change people's behaviors, eventually you change the culture as a whole. And he said that changing behavior works only if it can be based on existing culture. He further said, company cultures are like country cultures. You never try to change one. Instead, work with what you've got. So he's saying, take the best of what you have and keep it and build on it. Identify the things that need improvement and do so, but within the framework of what your culture is right now. Again, culture is not a thing you can package up and take to the office tomorrow and say, we're going to do this. It's always developing. And the key to that development is constant communication. Whether it's sending an email about this project you're working on, a product launch that's coming up, new hires are coming in, they get to spend a day, sitting around a campfire, hearing stories about what the organization was like before they got in there. All these things are important. And again, when I hear people that want to discuss culture. Like, how do I make these changes? I almost always hear the question in the form of, well, I have this problem and there's this tension between management and engineers or something along those lines. One thing to remember, how many managers in the room? We're all okay, all right, listen up. Managers and engineers, they might have different responsibilities, but keep in mind that they all have the same goal. Everyone's trying to drive the business. Everyone's trying to serve customers. Everyone's trying to deliver value. And we all would like to take home a paycheck, right? So we can live and do the things that we like to do. So we're all really going in the same direction. So managers and engineers need to listen to each other. They need to trust each other, right? At Etsy, management and engineering isn't, while you can draw it as a hierarchy on a piece of paper, it's very lateral, the relationships oftentimes, and I'll discuss a little bit that in a little bit. And finally, I said this earlier, while the technology and the products we create can be amazing, and that can attract talent, that's not the thing that keeps people, right? Docker is not the thing that keeps people around, right? Ruby on Rails is not the thing that keeps people around. It's the people. It's the people that they work with, and inherently the culture that they work within. Just briefly give you some idea of the scope of Etsy at the moment. As of March of this year, I believe, we had almost 21 million active buyers, almost 1.5 million active sellers. In almost every country, pretty much any country that's got a decent internet connection is buying and selling on Etsy. And we have over 700 employees across 7 offices. So how is it that we can maintain our culture, let alone let new employees know what it's like? And I'm specifically talking about the engineering organization at Etsy. We have a couple core engineering principles that we try to encourage people to follow. First, just ship. Just ship. Get it out there. Every engineer can push to production at any time of day, any time zone, whenever they feel it's appropriate. And we have some guidelines, don't push code during the holidays or late on a Friday when people are getting ready to go home. Sometimes you can't avoid it, so everyone has access all the time. We want to keep things as simple as possible. When you're shipping something, ship really small, easy to understand things. Little bits of code at a time. And the nice thing about this is not only can you deploy fast, when things break, because they always do, you can fail fast. And because it's easier to reason about these smaller things that you're pushing out, we can recover faster, we can reason about them faster, so when it comes time to have a blameless postmortem about what happened, it's easy to understand what broke. And of course, we graph everything. There's a common quote that we repeat all the time at the office: if it graphs, moves it. And even if it, I always mess it up, if it moves, graph it. And if it doesn't move, graph it anyhow, because one day it might decide to move. And we let that data and all the metrics we collect, we let that data drive our decisions. We let that data point us in the direction we want to go. We don't just have a feeling that our customers want this thing, so we're going to try it and see if it works. We have metrics that show us conversion rates. We have metrics that show us what the loads on our systems are going to look like when we roll out these new features. And as a result of these core principles, we can illustrate the impact of that. So around about 2009, maybe we had 5 to 10 deploys a day. Towards the end of 2014 or so, we're pushing upwards of 50, 60, 70 deploys a day, which is amazing, right? Because we're just pushing a lot of really small things very, very often. But there's a caveat here. Just like you can't take Etsy's culture into your office tomorrow, please don't go into the office and say, hey boss, tomorrow we're going to start pushing 70 times a day. This is an end. This is not a means to an end. This is how we measure the effectiveness of how we operate at Etsy. Now, if you have a very slow release cycle, maybe it's every quarter or so, and you want to get to faster deploys, that's a goal. But just arbitrarily picking a number and saying, we're going to get to this, does you no good. You have to understand the underlying changes you have to make to get there. I've got 2 colleagues that gave some presentations on Etsy's culture about 2 years ago, I think at Velocity London. So I'm covering some of that, and then everything else afterwards. But if you got the time, I highly recommend you check it out. Micro and Betsy and Patrick McDonald gave a really good duo presentation on this. These slides will be available later, so you can check that out. Let's dive into it. So Etsy started an department. 4 people said, we're going to change the world. We know there are these amazing craft communities out there, people that are making things with their hands, taking ideas and making them into something tangible, and they want to make they want to make a life, a career out of this. How do we get those people talking to each other? Well, let's create a website, right? Eventually, we moved into an office on Gold Street in Brooklyn, where you see this really awesome skate ramp. I don't know how to skate, but I would try this. This skate ramp also converted into standing desks when people actually wanted to do some real work. They could set their laptops up there. But it's very, very relaxed. This is a very, very small startup at that point. And despite it being very small and everyone being able to see each other and talk to each other, we had a lot of silos. There were a lot of people just off doing their own thing, and that resulted in some tools like this. People always grit their teeth at Etsy when you hear the name Sprouter. It's a really handy name for a stored procedure router. Someone got the idea that engineers should not be touching databases. They are not to be trusted. So we're going to put this interface in front of all of our databases rather than trusting that our engineers know a little bit of SQL. And it became known as this middleware of distrust. And so we were dysfunctional for a time. We brought in Maria Thomas from NPR as our CEO at that point. And she understood the importance of the community that we were serving. Right? We weren't just building a website for people to go to and buy and sell goods. We were creating a platform to enable these people to, in effect, be small businesses. There's a difference in the two approaches. And she made it a priority that everything that we do has got to be about that community. Chad Dickerson came in as our Chief Technology Officer to help shore things up, to help right the ship, if you will. He saw these silos and set about making sure that we could knock those walls down. Over that 2-year period, downtime was a fact of life. Our sellers got used to the fact. I'm surprised, sometimes that we've had sellers around for as long as we have, because they were just used to there being downtime every other Friday, right? Because we'd be pushing on a regular basis, or releasing code on a very regular basis. So people would expect, well, it's just the engineering team doing something. Give it a couple hours and we'll be okay. The work the engineers were doing really provided little value. There wasn't a whole lot that the buyers and sellers were getting out of what engineering was doing. It's almost as if we were still just building the website, keeping it running. But we started to make some changes, again with Maria Thomas coming in, that we recognized our focus had to be on the community. We had to be serving them. They were the whole reason we're there in the first place. And there were a couple really, really shaky holiday seasons where we barely made it through without melting some of our systems. So we started making some improvements internally. We knew that communication was super, super important. We started to have daily stand-ups. And if you're like me, you hate meetings. Right? Meetings are just their time suck. You have to prepare for the meeting, and after the meeting, you come down from the meeting. So like a 1-hour meeting could waste 3 hours of your day, right? At least if you're me, right, as I get ready for meetings. But we knew that it was important at least to start getting in front of each other all the time and talking to each other. We created the DevTools team. They were responsible for writing some internal tooling like Deploynator. Some of you folks might be familiar with that. Made a decision to move from light HTTP to Apache. And finally, we had some really significant network issues inside of our data center we had to correct. So that took a lot of that year. We started hiring as well in 2009. We started making a big push to hire engineers. And this is really, with the implementation of the DevTools team, this is really a point in Etsy's history where we could say, this is where we started to implement this DevOps mentality. This is where we started to encourage the collaboration between the developers and the ops team to really make something happen, with the goal of serving the community, keeping the business running. 2010, the man in the middle, that's Chad Dickerson. He brings in Kellen and John Allspaw, two folks from Flickr that he'd worked with on a regular basis. They've worked together for a number of years. They're comfortable with each other. They knew how to solve really hard problems, and they knew that if they all worked together, they could come in and make Etsy the thing that it needed to be. And so one of the things that we initially did, and this is a perfect example of engineering and community coming together, is we launched the Coda's Craft blog. And the idea behind Coda's Craft is we know we're solving hard problems. We're not the only ones solving these hard problems. Why don't we put the information out there about what we're doing and share with people? Because not only will we help others get to the same place we're at, but there's a good chance we're going to learn something in return. Right? We're going to start a conversation with other engineers in the world, and we're going to learn from them as well. We made some big changes where we started to simplify our stack. We moved to PHP and MySQL for everything. We definitely started to adhere to this mentality that we need to graph everything. So we made it super easy to graph things in Graphite, Ganglia. We've got some tools like FitB that allow us to monitor all of our network devices. We still use Nagios and Naglite, I think, which eventually became Nagdash. And the nice thing about this is we want to make this information visible to everyone across the organization. So not only can we demonstrate the health of the systems in our infrastructure, we've also got key business metrics. And so the engineers are showing the business the health of the systems. The business folks are looking at these key business metrics, and so are the engineers, and starting to understand how to tie the two together. And the really nice thing is, as a result of having all this data open to everybody, we did start to improve the work-life balance at Etsy. We realized we had a lot of alerts that were pointless because we had no visibility in what was happening. Once we started having the data available, we started getting rid of alerts, stopped waking up our engineers needlessly. So akin to my earlier caveat that you can't take Etsy's idea of culture into your office tomorrow, recognize that these are hard choices that we made that made sense to us at the time. Right? If I were a startup now, there's a good chance I probably wouldn't recommend PHP and MySQL. Right? It might be something else, whatever's hot right now, or whatever solves my problem. At the time, this solved our problem, and it still does. We like really boring solutions because it allows us to focus on the really hard problems that we need to solve. I guess I liken it to the fact that we're all using, or most of us here in Europe are using the euro at the moment. Right? Rather than every day dealing with the currency exchange and arguing over what the value of drachma is versus a guilder, we all use the euro, so then we can focus on what is the actual value of the item that I'm going to buy. Right? By the way, if you're Scotch drinkers, you know that this is a hard choice to make. Hopefully make the right one. Right? We like ours neat. Here's an example of, did you say that's right? Yeah, good. Okay. All right. It's after the beers with Cool Blue. You and I will get a whiskey. Here's an example of some of our dashboard pods in the office. Everything is available. We have not only systems level metrics, we have business level metrics, and that's a really cool one in the top middle. That was a temporary dashboard we had that demonstrated the ongoing searches on the website. So we could see this near real time. We could see what people were looking for. See some really interesting things that I can't really talk about in mixed company. So we had to start filtering out some of that content, especially as we have people walking through the office. 2010 there was a big sea change there. We made a lot of changes. I'm going to spend just a little extra time on this slide. Who here is doing Blameless postmortems? Okay, who's doing postmortems at least? Or retrospectives? Okay. Sometimes postmortem has the connotation that you're only reviewing negative things such as outages. Retrospectives, I think, cover a larger gamut where you've had an outage or, hey, this product launch was successful, how do we recreate that again? So in either form, it's a good thing. They need to be blameless. The reason we focus on the notion that they're blameless is because if you're going to go into a room and start pointing fingers at people and like, you're the reason the site went down. That guy is not going to tell you what he did and why he did it. In fact, he may not even show up, which is even worse. When you foster blameless postmortems, you're telling people that I want to understand what's really happening. Why did you make those decisions? What was the environment you were operating within when things went down? Because maybe we can make some improvements, right? We're all human, we're all fallible. One-on-ones became, and still are, a very, very important tool for connecting managers and engineers. And these aren't status updates. So it's not where you sit down and say, okay, what have you worked on today? What's your project status? We go for walks. Go grab a coffee. Just shoot the breeze. Do something other than really talking about work. You get to connect with people. And finally, career planning for engineers. We give them a path. We tell them these are the skills you need to develop to get to the next level. It makes people happy because they have an idea where they want to go. On the engineering side, any operators in the audience? Are we all programmers? It's okay, don't be shy. All right. Developers started going on call for the features that they were launching. We started doing experiments, A/B experiments, which is great. We can gauge the effectiveness of feature launches or feature changes. Feature flags, if you're not doing feature flags now, that's definitely something you should go to the office tomorrow and start working on. Allows you to ramp up new features or changes in features and monitor the impact on the site's conversion, monitor the impact on user behavior. Ramp it to 1%, ramp it to 10%, go all the way to 100. It's better than just saying, today we're going to release and hope that everything works. And then finally, schema change Thursdays, which in the face of continuous deployment, kind of seems counterintuitive that we're batching all of our database schema changes in one day, but they can be potentially really, really disruptive and not as visible as our web deploys. So it made sense to batch them up and to consolidate everyone's focus on that one day. And to this day, every Thursday is Schema Change Thursday. So to review, we really reduced the surface area of the stack, increased the level of visibility on everything that's happening in the infrastructure. Developers go on call, that's a good thing. One side note, our search team answers all of their alerts. Not a single one comes to the ops team, which is pretty cool. And again, we're helping people feel better about their careers and what they're doing when they come to the office by giving them a plan of how to move forward. How are we doing over there in time? 15 minutes? Great. Okay. Okay, all right. I get really excited about this. I could probably talk about this all day long, but we'll move through these pretty quick. In 2011, because we solved a lot of issues with our legacy hardware, we were able to allow our engineers to focus on externally contributing. Right? And we ask our engineers to do one of at least 3 things each year. Go to a conference and speak. Write a blog post on Coder's Craft or your own, and we'll promote it. Release open source software. So any tools we wrote that we think might be usable by other folks, release it, manage it. Even maintain the projects we already have out there. Big changes in 2011, Chad becomes CEO. Kellen fills his role as Chief Technology Officer and Allspa's Senior VP. And what this means for us is that we now have technical leadership at the helm of Etsy. And we are really now bridging the technologists and the community focus. And on the open source note, we've released a lot of tools. Probably some of these you're familiar with. StatsD, Logster, right? Make it really easy to get metrics into Graphite and parse them. Deploynators is our tool for pushing our app code. And the team just gets more mature. We even start to focus a little bit more on security, right? Security is usually viewed as the team of no, but we envelop security into the engineer organization. In fact, there was a pretty good presentation by Nick Galbraith, who used to work at Etsy, called DevOps Sec. You should look that up. Focusing on security, it's not just dev and ops and then over here is security. Security is involved in every aspect of code development, code deployment. And one of the things I really like about our security team is they understand the balance between usability, and keeping things secure. One of the things I like about Nick Galbraith, that presentation that I referenced, he says, you're only a blocker if you're the last to know. He knows that it's important for them to facilitate while educating about what it means to write code that is less susceptible or to being hacked or lowers the surface area of attack for the website. We hire a lot of people in 2012, and it allows us to then let people transfer between teams. Right? If you want to work on the search team, but you previously were working on another one, you can make those lateral movements. You can go to management. You can go from management back in engineering. It's a very lateral move. And the engineering team, as a result, delivers some really high-profile, very valuable tools to our buyers and sellers. Shipping labels is great. So imagine you're a one-person shop, and you have to go to the post office every time to ship something. Well, now you can print the labels right in your office, tape it there, and take it to the post office or have someone pick it up. It's really awesome. Gift cards. Who doesn't like gift cards for Christmas, right? I mean, if you're buying them, because you don't really have to go and buy something important or useful, you just say, here's an Etsy gift card. Go find something that you really want to have. And we become a certified B Corp. A little bit short on time, so now we're ending. Okay, well, tell you what, I have a lot of other really amazing things to talk about in terms of culture. This guy's kicking me off, because he doesn't care. So come talk to me.
Blame it on me.
Yeah. Come talk to me afterwards, and if anything you want to know about Etsy, I'll talk to you about. And I'll put these slides up so you can read the rest of them.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. Remember this one. All right.
I really feel sorry, Ryan.
Sorry.
There's a whole program to
My time.
I like your
have 5 minutes on my clock. I just want you to know that. All right.
but I still have some questions for you, Ryan, from the audience.
Oh, I thought we were done.
No, we still need questions.
Who's running the show?
I want to create interaction between you and your audience.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. You scared me off the stage.
No, don't be scared.
Yeah.
I might look scary, but I'm not. I'm very friendly.
That's probably that right there.
That was lost a long time ago. Don't let me down now.
Hey, I got back on stage again. Someone has to ask a question.
Then I will get evil. Oh, that's a question.
Probably it's too much of details, but I think it will help me to understand better the company. Why do you have database changes only by Thursday?
That was a function of, prior to that, there wasn't a whole lot of control or process around when they happen. So we were fighting a lot of outages related to unknown changes happening to the database at unknown times, and then at some point someone said, let's just focus on when we're making all these changes, batch them all, and it also allowed people to look through the list of schema change requests and say, well, I've got 3 requests for the same thing, so I can let these 3 groups of people know that this schema change is going to happen for them. So it allows us to better manage the requests and reduce the likelihood that there's going to be an outage related to those changes. Because everyone's focused on that at that moment.
Yeah, that's clear. Oh, just wait a minute.
Oh, why Thursday? I'm sorry. No, I don't think there's any really good reason. I don't know.
Just pick one day.
Just pick one day. It's better than Friday.
Yeah, you got the things.
Yeah.
I have another question for you.
Quick question. So how does Etsy try to make engineers not feel like their progress in their career has to go through management? To progress in their career, they don't have to go to management. So how do you have technical tracks?
That is an excellent question. We have a 6-level engineering track, so IC1 through IC6, and part of the higher levels in the IC track is more about mentoring and helping develop other people on the team. So if you like doing things that are maybe you might think are more like people managing skills, you can still do some of those as an IC and not necessarily have to be signing off on expense reports every day, right? Anybody? Oh.
In the beginning, you mentioned you worked remotely for several years. Where do you work from, and how does it relate to your company culture?
Where do I work from? I work out of my home in Maryland. See, now he's plying me with alcohol.
That always works.
Smart man. How does it work? How does it work for me being remote or for Etsy? Part of the story that I didn't tell is Etsy at one point had remotes, and then they collapsed to be in the office years and years and years ago because they realized that they had some difficulties with it. They got to a point where they knew that they were comfortable with the structure, with the infrastructure, with everything. They said, now let's open up the remotes again. So Etsy has really made leaps and bounds in supporting remotes because they know talent lives anywhere. And we have, even on my team, I've got co-workers in Europe. They made a really, really strong effort to support remotes and put in not only processes but technology to make sure that it is easier to work as remote. Yeah. That's another big topic. Let's talk.
Thank you very much for your insight on culture.
All right. Thanks a lot.
And growing a company. And keep growing.
We are. Keep growing.
And yes, just to bribe you off.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
And we have more questions for you during drinks. Thank you very much, Ryan.
All right. Thanks,
Ryan
folks.
Frantz.